Stonehouse homestead where we are taking small steps towards self-sufficiency. We are using what we have to do what we can where we are. And as you can see, we are not on the homestead at the moment. We have had some really great temperatures the past couple days. The high 70s, low 80s, nice and sunny. Of course, today is cloudy, it's a little cooler. It's the way it is around this part of the country this time of year, but it's also the perfect weather for sugaring. So we are here today at Cunningham Falls in the Kentucky Mountains, where we are going to see the sugaring demonstration, how they make maple syrup. So we invite you to come along with us and take a look to see how things are done. I found a bucket on a tree that's been tapped. If you look here, you can see, I think it's called a spile. And the sap is going to be flowing out and into the bucket. Of course, they keep it covered. Yeah, there's little bits. Unless I just emptied it recently. Probably it's boiling in that pot down there. And the sap drips out. And then, of course, they cover it to keep all the debris out. So, the gentleman said there's about 4 of them hanging around here, I guess for demo purposes. And of course, they're going to keep filling their pot there for the demonstration. So, pretty cool. I'm going to go check this one out in a second. Maybe we'll have some sap in here. A lot in there. I guess I have to filter the bugs out.
Yeah.
So, I'm kind of hungry. I'm going to make it short and sweet for you guys. So you're here to learn about how to make maple syrup. And I'm going to tell you. You take some sap from a tree. Yep. Looks like some sap. So you take some sap from a tree, you pour it in a big kettle, you light a fire, and you let it boil for about 8 hours. That's it. Thanks everybody for coming out. It's lunchtime. The Native Americans or the American Indians were the first people to discover the maple sap. And there's a couple myths or legends as to how they did this. There's one legend that there's a group of braves out walking in the middle of the woods. Maybe they're out hunting, maybe they're out gathering, and so they get tired. They take their tomahawk, they sink it into a tree, and they fall asleep. So they wake up sometime later and they see a big puddle of liquid dripping at the bottom of the tree. They're thirsty, so they taste it, and it tastes sweet to them. And they figured they could do something with it from there. So that's one theory. Another theory is that there's a group of braves out walking in the woods, and they notice a bunch of squirrels at the top of the trees, nibbling on the buds at the end of the branches. Again, they see a clear liquid dripping out of the end of the branches. They figure if the squirrels are doing it, maybe they know something we don't. So they taste it, and again, it tastes sweet to them. Now, it wouldn't taste sweet to us because we have things like ice cream and candy bars and soda, and things that have made us, a little more resilient to the taste of sugar. So either way, they collected it, and they would have collected it in their big wooden birch bowls, and they would take it back to camp. So there's some discrepancy whether they actually made maple syrup or not. And the way they would have done it is they would have heated big stones in a fire and transferred the stones to the wooden bowls with the sap in it and boil it that way. So it takes us about 8 hours using a big fire and a copper kettle to make maple syrup. So how long do you think it would take by transferring stones over into a wooden bowl? So there's some discrepancy there. But we do know the next people that come along, the colonists and settlers, did make maple syrup. And they would have made it just how we're doing it today. This is called the batch method, with an open flame, a big kettle, and all we're doing is evaporating the water off. So that's the process called the batch. The colonists did learn some things from the Native Americans. They made a couple improvements. They learned that instead of slashing the tree, like the Native Americans would have, and literally just let the tree weep with sap, they found out that they could take a drill bit, drill it into the tree, and take something called staghorn sumac, a native tree, and make what we call a spile. And Chris here is going to show you how they would have done it. So staghorn sumac is a native tree that has a very soft pith or center to it. So they'd shave off one side, take a hot poker, stick it through the middle, like that, and make a funnel. Put the funnel in the tree here, you've got a nice little spout. So we call those spiles. So, other improvements, instead of them just collecting it up off the ground, they would have used, so they fashioned these wooden peeler buckets, attach them to the tree, and now you've solved one problem. It's easier to collect. There's a problem with the wooden keeler buckets though. They would have lined them on the inside with something. Anybody tell me what that might have been?
Lead?
Some sort of paint they might have used. Lead-based paint. So they hadn't got it quite figured out yet, but they're making improvements. So jumping forward a little bit, the blacksmiths would have made metal buckets that don't rot. You can still hang hooks from them, get them up off the ground. Makes it easier to collect and they're not rotting out. There's still a problem with the metal buckets though. Anybody know what they would have sealed the edges with of the metal buckets?
Lead?
Lead solder, yep. So you solve the rot problem, you still have the lead. But we're getting there. So, that's a little bit about the history of maple syrup and the evolution of the process. Now we're going to talk a little bit about the tree and what kind of trees you need to make maple syrup. Okay, anybody tell me what kind of tree you need?
Maple.
Maple tree, yep. What kind of maple tree do you think works the best? Sugar maple, yep. So sugar maples have the highest sugar content of any maple tree. A whopping 3% sugar to 97% water. Yeah. So, it's not a lot. If you tasted it, it would probably just taste like water. Maybe some bugs in it. It's the way we do it. So sugar maples aren't the only maple tree you can use. You can also use red maples and silver maples and any other native maple species. Their sugar content is a little lower, somewhere in 1 to 3 range. So, how big of a maple tree do you need? How big in diameter do you think a maple tree has to be to have one tap in it? Any guesses? 10 inches? Any other guesses? You don't need it. It is 10 inches. 10 inches for one tap. So for every additional 5 inches, you can add one more tap. So it's Saturday. I'm going to make you guys do some math. I'm sorry. I know. So you've got a 20-inch diameter tree. How many taps can you put? 3. Yep. 3 taps in a 20-inch tree. So where do you measure on the tree to figure out how big it is? We have a formula we use called DBH, which is diameter at breast height. So you measure it at about 3 to 5 feet on the tree, and that's where you come up with your diameter. Yeah. To drill the hole in the tree, you're going to use a 5/8 diameter bit, and you're going to drill into the tree, into what's called the xylem or the sapwood of the tree, about 1 1/2 inch at a slightly upward angle into the tree. And that's where you tap it. So what kind of temperatures do you think you need for maple syrup? What do you think is the best time of the year to collect sap?
Right now.
Springtime, winter? Yep. A little bit of both. We're looking for that transition where you have really warm days and cold nights below freezing. And the idea is that during the warm days, the sap flows up the tree to help with bud production and leaf production. And at night, so the water doesn't get trapped up in the branches and expand, it goes back down into the roots. So that's what we want, is that constant of movement of sap up and down the barrel of the tree. So, how many gallons of sap do you think it takes to make 1 gallon of maple syrup? I heard 40. 4? 10? That whole bucket? Yeah, so it's 40. 40 to 1 ratio. 40 gallons of sap to 1 gallon of syrup. So if you have a bucket this big of sap, that's what you get. That's it. About 3 ounces. Yeah, so that's about enough for a half a pancake. So it's not a lot. 40 gallons to 1. How do you tell when it's done? How do you tell when you got the good sweet stuff? There's a couple different methods you can use. First one is the thermometer, standard thermometer. Can anybody tell me what temperature water boils? 100? 120? Yep, so 100 Celsius, 212 Fahrenheit, give or take, depending on a couple things. What temperature do you think you have maple syrup? 219 degrees is where you have maple syrup. 219 degrees. We don't use that method, it's too fancy, too scientific for us. So there's another method. This is called a hydrometer, and it measures the amount of water in a substance. What percentage do you think maple syrup is for water? 3% sugar to 44% water. And that's where you have maple syrup. So you can see if we start at 3% out of the tray, we have to cook it all the way down to 66%.
Oh, there it
so
is,
it
right
does
there.
take a while.
Right beside Keon.
We don't use this either.
Right beside Keon.
That's still too fancy. This is what we use. The trusty ladle. The scientific ladle. And the method we use is pretty simple. You take a scoop of sap, you pour it out, and you hold the ladle upside down over the cool air. And when it's done, you'll get this really pretty sort of curtain that hangs around the outside of the ladle. You'll see it's nice and brown, dripping, looks super sweet, and it's got an awesome name that I love to say. It's called the crystalline curtain. The crystalline curtain.
I thought it was called syrup.
No, it's called the crystalline curtain. And I'll say it a million times today because I love it. So you'll see it hang off the edge and kind of hold there. And that's how we know it's done. So these are the 4 different grades of maple syrup. You've got grade A, also called Vermont Fancy. If you go up to Vermont, some places up north, this is all you're going to see. This is the dinner table bring out for the fancy company syrup. A little lighter in color, a little lighter in taste as well. Still very sweet, but very good as well. So you have grade A medium. Amber is the next one. You've got amber, and then you've got dark. And the difference is that you're going to taste a little more of that rich maple flavor the darker you go. I'm not going to say which one's better. It's all up to you. It's preference and what you like. So the states that produce maple syrup are the Mid-Atlantic states up through the Northeast, and then across the Great Lakes region. So that's where most of the maple syrup production is going from. So in Maryland, we have 3 main producers of maple syrup, and they're all in Western Maryland, Allegheny County and Garrett County. So if you want 100% pure maple syrup, make sure that it says 100% pure maple syrup. They legally can't sell it and put 100% if it's not. Now, lucky for you all today, the Brown Shack down there is selling 100% pure Maryland maple syrup from S&S Maple Camp in Gordonsville. They also have some maple candies, maple creams, which is really, really good. So get down there and help them out before they sell out.
So thanks for joining us today at the Maple Syrup Harvest Festival. We did purchase a little thing of pure maple cream from a maple camp up in Western Maryland. Never tried this before, so this will be interesting. We actually do get our maple syrup from a place out in Western Maryland. We go there every so often and we do buy it by the gallon so we can have it at the house. Because the reality is, when you have a suburban homestead or an urban homestead, you can't do everything for yourself. You have to make contacts and you have to know who your local people are that you can contact and you can purchase things from that you can't provide for yourself. And so for us, maple syrup obviously is one of those things. We have one maple tree. I think it's a Norwegian maple, so we can't tap it. So we have to find some place to get our maple syrup from, and we do like pure maple syrup. We use it not only on pancakes and waffles. John sweetens his coffee with it. We've used it on oatmeal. It's just a great overall sweetener, and it's really good to have in your pantry. So this has been the Maple Syrup Harvest Festival. We're so happy you were able to join us. If you enjoyed this video, we ask that you give us a thumbs up on YouTube and check out our Facebook page at Stonehouse Homestead on Facebook, and you can like us there as well. We'll see you next time.